How do you know if you're feeling shame or guilt? Today we're clarifying the difference between them. What is shame and what is guilt? Why do we feel them? And what tools can we use to heal these emotional wounds? It's not always obvious to discern if we're feeling guilt or shame, but this distinction is vital for the quality of our emotional health. Just a quick side note, the shame we're exploring in this video is not the one that enforces social expectations, but the malignant kind that can stem from unprocessed abuse, neglect, or emotional trauma. The same goes for guilt. Our focus is not on the kind of wrongdoing punishable by law. Here we are focusing on false guilt, which is more of an emotional perception of one's own wrongdoing or an action, whether true or not. So let's start there. False guilt contains all the shoulda, coulda, wouldas regarding a particular situation, and its purpose is to alert us to a discrepancy between what we believe and how we behave. We feel guilty when we have done something that goes against our own values or violates the moral guidelines of the people around us. Guilt makes us feel inadequate, like we're deserving of blame, more often for some imagined offense. It also magnifies our responsibility by measuring our reality compared to others through the lens of not feeling worthy of our experiences. Examples of this range from survival's guilt to feeling good, safe, and provided for during a global pandemic. On a fundamental level, guilt frames the belief that we are responsible for our and everyone else's existence and experience. But that's a tall order, right? Because we're not responsible for other people's feelings and behavior, so why would we hold this belief in the first place? In other words, how does guilt serve us? Simply put, the uncomfortable feeling of guilt, being very specific in its focus, moves us away from certain behaviors, so we do them less often. But what if that uncomfortable feeling is nothing but an invitation to expand our comfort zone, to do things differently, better even? What if, instead of dwelling on self-punishment, we emphasized behavioral change? It might not surprise you to know that the most common behaviors that makes us feel guilt can go from giving into cravings to not following on our promises or pretending to be someone we're not. So how can we embrace its presence and use guilt as a tool for helping us to evolve and grow? A quick reflection session you can do is to make a list of all the things that you might feel guilty about on your average day, and then ask yourself the following questions. Have I hurt anyone, including myself? Have I done permanent harm to my body? Have I inconvenienced anyone? And if so, was it because my needs came first? Will someone be emotionally scarred by what I've just done? Is this a situation that I can't rectify? When measured against these questions, most of our reasons for feeling guilty may look extremely irrelevant. Making mistakes is how we learn, grow, and mature. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means you're human. And as a human, you also have the choice to turn those mistakes into lessons. So let's get back to the list and draw a column next to it. Now reflect on each line you wrote and ask yourself, is this a mistake that I keep making? If the answer is yes, you might be experiencing a pattern. Becoming aware of that pattern gives you a choice to interact with the situation in a different way. In this case, how can you turn it into a growth opportunity? For example, if you need to unload your anger onto someone else and then feel guilty you hurt them, how can you learn to acknowledge and heal the underlying unexpressed emotion that your aggression is calling your attention to? For more on this, watch our video on healing anger. If your answer is no, this is an isolated incident, then does it affect someone else? If so, how can you amend the situation and rectify your behavior? Perhaps you feel anxiety about an upcoming event and were a little impatient with your partner for overcooking dinner. In this case, consider taking a few deep breaths, apologize for your short temper, and share your worry thoughts with them. And for more on this, watch our video on healing anxiety. When we witness ourselves behaving in a manner that is congruent with our perception of ourselves, we are rewarded with a positive feeling, often described as pride. Much like guilt, pride is considered a self-conscious emotion, albeit one that inspires high regard for oneself. However, feeling good about our choices is not the same as feeling good about ourselves, and this is where shame comes in. Unlike guilt, shame is an intensely painful feeling. that stems from believing that we are flawed and unworthy of love and belonging. If guilt is an action of doing something bad, shame is an identification with being bad. It is a symptom of guilt, and it often arises from our perception of what others may think of us, but it can also become apparent when someone calls us out on a particular situation to contain our behavior. And you know whose literal job is to instill us morals and self-control? Our parents, of course. So let's go back to our childhood. How we see ourselves and the world is a direct reflection of the quality of the emotional bonds we developed in childhood and the social environment we were exposed to. If you're interested in understanding what type of emotional bond you have learned to develop during your formative years, watch our chapter on attachment styles. Our attachment style provides us with the language to describe how we show up in our relationships with ourselves and others. The more secure we are within ourselves and in our relationships with other people, the more we can regulate and understand our emotions, making it easier to develop trusting and lasting connections. However, when you grow up in a toxic environment, and by toxic I mean you weren't given the freedom or tools to fully express yourself, often due to emotional ignorance, abuse, or neglect, you learn to adapt to your survival patterns. Different strains of shame are informed on the abuser's own wounds or obsessions and are commonly related to order, germs, body image, sexuality, gender roles, or social status. For example, for those who have experienced rejection or abandonment during childhood, it's common to experience feeling unheard, misunderstood, or unseen. And because of this learned conditioning, this focus on lack shapes the inner dialogue and can form the foundation for a harshly self-critical one that plays on repeat, "There's something fundamentally wrong with me." This negative self-talk is not a reflection of who you are or do, but how you perceive yourself through the lens of shame, which can make you disconnect from yourself, from others, and avoid what causes you to hold on to it in the first place. If there's something that is common to all humans, is that we all have the same underlying needs to belong, to be seen, to be heard, and to matter. However, when we live in shame, we cannot experience any of these things. Shame is the inner resistance that blocks us from truly feeling and experiencing ourselves as whole and worthy of love and acceptance. There's always something wrong with any way we choose to see our experience. All of these survival behaviors are classic instinctive responses to persistent threat. Yet, shame doesn't let us acknowledge that. Instead, it fragments us to the point where we only see ourselves as the problem, as wrong, immoral, or broken. This feeling is so powerful that it makes us believe that the only choice we have is to shut down, to hide, numb ourselves, or lash out at others. We reinforce negative spirals of rumination, suppression, and isolation, activating aggressive defenses that block positive resolution and lead to destruction and disorder. With guilt, our focus is usually on the other person, how we've harmed them, or how we have it better than them. This motivates us to make amends and change our behavior in the future. Yet with shame, we're more focused on ourselves and what people think of us than we are concerned for them. Eluding shame can become a lifetime endeavor and lead you to miss out on living a fully expressed life. Instead, we want to power up your emotional toolkit with strategies and resources to overcome self-loathing. The first tool we have is a perspective tuning strategy, a shift in mindset that goes something like this. Shame is an addiction to suffering that triggers the compulsion to self-sabotage over and again, preventing us from making better choices for ourselves. It defers our value to what others think of us, because at some point in our lives we have taken in the belief that our value is not inherent, but measured against others' expectations of us. This becomes a self-perpetuated judgment that can only be seized when we shed light to it and choose to look at our shortcomings and maladaptive behaviors with acceptance and compassion. So with that in mind, where do you choose to place your value and worth? If you learn that your value is tied to your performance or achievements, you can choose to defy that belief and heal that attachment wound, or remain stuck in the cycle of people-pleasing, overthinking, perfectionism, and self-betrayal. If your independence is an overcompensation that comes from a place of fear of being seen as incompetent or needy, instead of authentic self-sufficiency or self-trust, you can continue to manipulate and coerce others to meet your needs, or you can choose connection and vulnerability over anger and loneliness. If your sense of identity and belonging is dependent on needing to be in a relationship, you can challenge that compulsion and choose to figure out who you are and what you genuinely want and learn to value yourself as an individual. If someone that you care about triggers shame that makes you want to disappear, withdraw, or detach every time there's some form of emotional connection or intimacy, you can choose to run away, keep your relationships based on shallow investments, or you can heal that shame of fearing abandonment by being vulnerable with them and sharing how feeling insignificant and dismissed triggers childhood memories of feeling unseen and unheard. If you prefer to distract yourself from feeling your feelings with busyness, various forms of entertainment, and an assortment of numbing agents to avoid or escape painful memories, vulnerable emotions, or past trauma, you can choose to keep applying these emotional band-aids until your wounds fester and infect your physical, mental, and emotional health. Or you can stop the painful merry-go-round, open the wound, and let it breathe. You can choose to get support from other people who understand and can relate to your experience. Sometimes keeping shameful secrets just insulates us from support because our fear of disapproval inhibits us from testing whether that fear is well-founded. However, sharing is the cure for shame. If you imagine a friend sharing the same experiences you're ashamed of, how easy would it be to empathize with them? Can you extend the same level of compassion for yourself? To forgive yourself for not knowing any better? To see yourself as capable of changing, of improving your behavior and feel better. Now, I hear you. No matter how much good you do for the world, nothing will ever take away the self-inflicted suffering of not being able to go back in time and do it differently. Except there is, and it's called forgiveness. Without forgiveness, the past never stops hurting. It stays with you. Forgive yourself for the role you play in your history, be it the victim or the perpetrator. Accept that you did not know any better, for you are always the best version of yourself at every moment, and if you had known to do something different, you would have done it. Let go of that personality trait you felt the need to create then that already served its purpose. Be an observer right now. Learn from the past, meaning ask yourself, how do I wish to experience things? And what do I wish to create now? You can only be ready to accept forgiveness once you're ready to take responsibility for your life and your choices. Because forgiveness inspires in us the courage to look within, to see our shortcomings, be it in the form of anger, fear, trauma, or insecurity, and meet them with healing. Forgiveness is not an active 10-step process, but a byproduct of healing. When we heal, we forgive. When we acknowledge our wounds and process how we feel about them, we heal. When we recognize how our responsibility is determined by factors such as knowledge, skill, autonomy, intention, and power, and we recognize how they may have been absent in certain circumstances, we unburden ourselves from false blame and heal. Curiosity can also assist you in reflecting on those emotional memories because it replaces the internalized abuse and all other protections you've accumulated with a sense of wonder and detachment. This openness is the gift of mindfulness. And if you want to start practicing it, we have an entire playlist dedicated to the practice of acceptance and self-compassion. You can use it to journal your thoughts, emotions, and feelings and bring awareness to how you talk to yourself. Another tool you can start integrating into your habitual routine is a quick but intentional Ho'oponopono prayer. Ho'oponopono is a traditional Hawaiian practice that restores the balance between our conscious and subconscious with 4 simple steps: repentance, forgiveness, gratitude, and love. This powerful mantra can be done by simply calling to mind yourself or a relationship where you want to bring forgiveness and healing. Imagine a golden light infusing your heart with compassion, gratitude, and love. And then imagine overflowing and pouring out this golden light into theirs while repeating the mantra, I am sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. All these strategies serve the purpose of reframing our perception of ourselves. Since our subconscious is programmed through repetition and emotion, when you operate from this level of forgiveness towards yourself, you shift the color of the lens through which you see those shameful memories. You begin developing new neural pathways of acceptance, replacing the shame narrative with accountability, with new empowering perspectives that come from a place of self-respect, self-confidence, and self-trust. And from this place of intrinsic self-worth, it becomes much easier to let go of others' validation, permission, approval, forgiveness, of needing others to complete you, to validate and understand you. You come to find peace in the idea that you have no idea what they are thinking, so the thoughts you attribute to them are speculations from your own mind. You will begin seeing someone's disapproval of you as a mirror reflection of that dislike aspect in yourself. You will become aware of when you feel defensive, and you will feel confidence in exploring and healing the deeper wound that your anger or controlling behavior is protecting. In some, you will set the example. You will create the template and become the teacher and guide the world is calling out for. Owning your feelings and emotions and being present with them with compassion will assist you in dissolving your resistance to self-love. Don't let anyone take away your progress or guilt you into a state of disempowerment by framing what emotions you should or should not express. Don't defer to the judgment of others, and learn to question your assumptions, as developing healthy critical habits is what will undoubtedly improve your self-confidence and bring you the acceptance and connection you so desire. If you're interested in learning more about releasing unwanted thoughts and feelings, I strongly recommend you to watch this video on acceptance. And in the meantime, have a good week.